All right, welcome back to another episode of the Legacy Builders Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle McGee. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with a guest who's carved out a remarkable journey from walking on, eventually playing a key role on arguably the greatest collegiate defense of all time, and no doubt one of the greatest programs in college football, to now having an extremely successful career leading a development company that is shaping neighborhoods across the Southeast. Joining me is Mr. Will Lowery, Managing Director of Single Family Residential Development at 68 Ventures, a real estate and development investment firm based in Daphne, Alabama. In his role, Will leads every phase of residential land development, acquisitions, due diligence, design, and entitlements, playing a key part in creating communities that people call home across the Southeast. Beyond his athletic and professional accomplishments, Will is also a devoted husband and father, balancing leadership and business with leadership at home. Will, it's an honor to have you on the show. Welcome.
Glad to be here, Kyle. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So in prep of this podcast, I've never Googled Will Lowery before, but I was Googling Will Lowery this morning, and it doesn't take me much to get fired up, honestly, but I was getting fired up, honestly. It's football season. There's all of these awesome articles about you and your journey and walking on to Alabama football. So fired up for today's podcast and hear the story from the man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah, man, we've gotten to know each other at a later stage in life, and the football days feel long behind me in some ways. So it's always funny to get that connection when people hear about some of it. It's good times.
Yeah, yeah. And I personally love football. Like, I was a very mediocre player, but, had a little success in high school. And, definitely I feel like football is the best life teaching game there is, right? It's the ultimate team sport. There's leadership, there's grit and perseverance and failing and getting your bell rung and having to get back up. So definitely it seems as if football, was and is still probably a key component to your story, right? And so talk me through, first, I just want to hear the story from your perspective. Like, were you a preferred walk-on, or what was the journey from high school to walking on to Alabama football?
Yeah, I think I was preferred. That's a loose term. So yeah, played at Hoover up in Birmingham. We were a powerhouse. Man, we were the number one team in the country my junior year. Pretty much everybody I played on defense with that year played D1. So I just grew up around really good competition my whole life in all the sports, and kind of played them all growing up. Basketball, baseball, football. Baseball, I quit first. Probably was my best sport. Played basketball and football through the 10th grade. After my 10th grade year, we did not make the playoffs in varsity basketball, and our entire staff got fired. And we went undefeated in football, won the state championship. I was like, all right, I'll focus on football. And I actually thought I was going to quit football coming into high school just because I liked basketball the most. But we were just so good, and Coach Jeremy Pruitt, who played a big part in my journey in football, was kind of, telling me how good I could be and was kind of coaching me up and stuff. So anyway, stuck with football, had a ton of success in high school. And then after my senior year ended, wasn't highly recruited, about 5'10", 175, pretty much the most average male size you can get. Did not run an impressive 40 times. So needless to say, Coach Saban did not recruit my profile of player. So in coming out, I had two D1 offers, Air Force and Navy. Had strong academics, probably had a lot to do with that. Um, just never really had considered the military route, which is interesting now, living down on the Gulf Coast. It's such a bigger part of life down here. Maybe that would have been different had I grown up around it, but just really didn't have any ties to it. The 5-year commitment post college kind of shied me away from that maybe. And so took a little look at some of the smaller schools recruiting me. Birmingham Southern was probably coming after me the hardest. Coach Joey Jones, who I still keep up with. He called me last weekend, actually. But he really recruited me hard. I went and visited there, and candidly, just, a little bit too small for me. I was basically playing in front of bigger crowds on Friday nights at that point than I would have been playing in college. So wasn't interested in that. But found myself that spring. I was on a beach trip with my family, and found myself in the weight room working out like on a perfectly beautiful day. And I was like, what am I doing? just kind of still had the bug to be around it. So I called up Coach Pruitt, who was my coach in high school at Hoover at the time. He had left right before my senior year to take a job at Alabama and get on staff there, and was basically like, "Hey man, if y'all need some more tackling dummies or whatever, I'll come out there and be on the scout team. I kind of just want to be around it a little bit still." So yeah, he basically talked to Coach Saban. He said, "Come on, I'm sure he vouched for me." So my freshman year. I showed up after camp, so I was not in the 105 roster, was not on scholarship, but I didn't have to try out or anything. I just showed up and was on the team. So I think that was a technically a preferred walk-on, but Coach Pruitt was far from the most communicative person in the world. He just basically called me up, was like, "Hey, show up at the facility this day." I was like, "Where's the facility, coach? I've never been there." So yeah, showed up my freshman year in 2008. It was Coach Saban's second year, and was able to have a bunch of success. Speaking of the program, first year before I got there for Coach Saban, I think he went 7-6, kind of just getting the turnover out of the way and getting his regime implemented. But when I got there as a freshman in '08, we went undefeated in the regular season. Ended up losing to Tim Tebow in the SEC championship, and so we went 12-2, lost the bowl game to Utah, but everybody was kind of thinking national championship, so kind of a letdown. A lot of factors went into that, but anyway, had that, and then sophomore year we won the national championship, went undefeated, and ran the table, beat Texas in the Rose Bowl out in California. And at some point that year, I kind of realized that we were about to graduate seven of our top eight DBs, and I was going to get a chance that spring just out of sheer numbers alone. So spring going into my junior year, was just able to do well in the opportunities that I got in practice and in the scrimmages, performed well, earned the coach's trust, and was able to carve out a role for myself. I was the dime back in the secondary, free safety, basically coming in on four wide receiver personnel sets and third downs, and played on most of the special teams for my junior and senior year.
And it's an awesome story, and definitely want to go deeper here. Like, first thing that sticks out to me is the power of relationships, right? So like that's a God thing that you just happen to have Jeremy Pruitt he's a freaking legendary defense coordinator, great coach, and he was your high school coach, right? So you had a relationship that already kind of got you in the door, right? It's the power of who, not how, right? Obviously, you have to take the bull by the horns and take the opportunity and run with it, but there was a relationship to open the door, right? And then just by happenstance, you have the greatest college football coach of all time in his second year, part of the program, right? Like, what was that like, being in the fire of it? Because outside looking in, people tend to make things greater than they are or were. But like, what was that like stepping on as a freshman and sophomore and probably not thinking that you're going to play a huge role, but you're still part of something great, right? And you're still there every day and you're seeing the habits and you're around these stud athletes. Like, what was that like learning from Saban and Pruitt and all of the great coaching staff Alabama had at the time?
Well, I'll touch on the relationships thing first because that is key, and it kind of comes full circle because same thing, relationships is what introduced me to Nathan and got me down here on the Gulf Coast. So I'm sure we'll hit on that later. But yeah, I mean, it was I was really fortunate that a lot of our coaches and people that I was around at Hoover. Moved on to a lot of things. Obviously, Coach Pruitt, he was a walk-on himself at Alabama and had some success as well as a player before his coaching days at Alabama. And still to this day, I'll argue he's as good a defensive mind in college football as exists. I'll put him up there, probably just behind Saban on that end, and I still talk to him as well. But another coach I had a relationship with that gave me some good advice was Coach Kevin Scher. He's made the coaching rounds as well. He kind of moved up to be our D coordinator at Hoover my senior year when Pruitt left. He also moved up to the college ranks, came to Alabama, went to Georgia for a little bit, Tennessee, D coordinator at the college level, and then linebackers coach the New York Giants for a little bit. So another awesome guy that I owe a lot to. And I remember him telling me when I was going to walk on, he also was a walk on at Alabama. And before I got there, he was like, "Look, if you're going to do the walk on route, like if you're lucky, you'll get one shot. And basically, if you can capitalize on your opportunity, you may be able to carve your way into some playing time and a significant role on the team. But if not, you'll get put right back into the scout team pile or whatever." And that stuck with me. And like I say, I was fortunate to get that shot, just out of happenstance with personnel at the time. and was able to capitalize on it. But that always stuck with me of just taking advantage of opportunity when it presents itself and being ready for the moment, not being scared of it and stepping up to it. But yeah, he's just another guy that had a ton to do with my story and kind of my path to where I am today, both athletically and professionally and personally. Because, like you mentioned earlier, I agree that football is up there with any, if not the best, in terms of preparing you for life and how to be successful and overcome adversity. Yeah, people ask me all the time, "Were you going to let your kids play football?" Because I've got three kids, two are boys, and I'm certainly not going to press it on them. But if they want to play, then absolutely, I would love to see them do that because just like you said, I mean, lining up against someone and physically knowing I've got to get past them or get them on the ground and having to get knocked on your butt, get back up, getting your bell rung, and coming back, all that stuff. There's a ton of having somebody play in front of you that you don't think should, or whatever. There's just a ton of adversity in football that you have to contend with and deal with mentally and physically. And if you want to have success, you got to fight through it. And absolutely, there's a ton of parallels with that in life. I mean, the same intangibles on the football field apply to business every day. And now I will say that I had my share of concussions, my share of injuries. I'm still battling the consistent or persistent neck and back pain and aches, and we've talked on about that some. I've got plenty of health things that I'm doing, probably at a much younger age than most. I've probably got a 75-year-old body and a 35-year-old person, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'd do it all over again if I had to for the reasons I just mentioned. But yeah, man, it was incredible playing under Saban and those guys. I mean, I could tell you stories for days. I mean, he's just Coach Saban specifically is just an incredible human. He could anything he wanted to do in life, he'd be the absolute best. If he wanted to be the CEO of Mercedes-Benz, he'd be the best one they ever had. If he wanted to be a preacher, he'd be the best one you ever heard. I mean, he just is an incredible human that is so driven to succeed and knows he just has that process he always talks about. I mean, he understands what his goals are, and then he back engineers how do I achieve these goals? How do I accomplish this mission? And he puts it in place, and then he leads from the front and leading the charge of an organization to achieve it. And being able to be a part of it was really special. And like I say, I mean, stuff that he used to harp on all the time still rings in my head every day and every morning, and motivates me every day to try and live up to a standard of whatever I'm doing that he preached on.
So what I want to ask about this because I'm a firm believer success leaves clues, right? Like these people that achieve this crazy like outlier level of success, it isn't by accident, right? And so you talk about like having big goals and working backwards into them, and that's what Saban did, and then he surrounded himself with the best talent, right, from the coaching staff and from players' perspective. But I think something that probably gets glossed over is he was extremely difficult and like narrow-minded on what his expectations were. But the discipline and habits, right, is what was it about him that just has that aura for you to say that whatever he decided he would do, he would be the best at?
Because he led by example. I mean, he was up there early every day at the facility, and he was there late, and he drove his staff the same way, and he expected greatness out of every single person on staff. I mean, I can give you a few examples that I can remember in a walkthrough one day. This is technically pre-practice, if you will, basically practice, but not technically as they report it to the NCAA or whatever to get within the limits, I guess. But we're doing a walkthrough. In fairness, it is you're walking through stuff, but you're walking through plays and kind of script of plays and kind of getting the vision on it and stuff. And we're doing a walkthrough, and one of our managers spots the ball on the wrong hash. So again, down to process, every single play of script of practice down to the pre-practice walkthroughs is scripted. The play, the ball, which yard line you on, which hash the field are you on, which line alignment defensively, offensively, and every single bit of it has a purpose. And for whatever reason that day, the ball boy spotted the ball on the wrong hash. Supposed to be left hash, it was right hash. Saban just unloads on him, just letting him have it. I mean, God dang it, why you can't. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, like, man, it's the ball boy, like it's the manager. He's probably a freshman. I don't know. Geez, take it easy on the guy. And so the very next play, we run the play. I don't remember the specific play, but Coach Saban just rips off on Coach Jim McElwain, who at the time was our offensive coordinator and assistant head coach, the exact same. Why the heck are we running this play? Like we shouldn't do that in this scenario. What? And it's going off. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, man, that's wild. Like, from the lowest guy to the second in command of the entire program, he treated everybody the same, and the expectation was that you were switched on and you were hitting your expected accomplishment or mission of that play every single time. And he was like that 24/7. And there was just no drop off. I mean, every single moment of the day with that guy had a purpose, and it was to make you better at whatever we were doing, to make our program better and whatever goal you had on the team. And if you weren't doing it, you were going to hear about it. And that was just around the clock for my 4 years there. And kind of like, after we won the championship in '09, you've heard the assistant coaches talk about it in some of their podcasts and interviews and stuff. They're like, oh man, it was awesome. And then they're like, we're on the bus on the way back, and he's already talking about recruiting, and they're like, Coach, I can't, just enjoy it. He's on to the next. He was just so driven to succeed, and he lived it by example, which was a big thing to me, is he didn't just preach it. He was the guy doing it. He led from the front, and it was easy to get behind somebody like that. And the passion that he had and the standard that he held every single day, consistency and performance is the true measure of success. That's another one that he used to harp on that I still think about. And look, I think about all this stuff. I'm not saying I hit every day, right? I mean, it's just, but it's what you strive for and what drives you to kind of try and be successful and get it done every single day.
Yeah, and I mean, what a blessing it is to have seen that firsthand and been a part of that, and take those lessons, that you learned as a very impressionable. Like, I think about like you getting this experience from 18 to 22, and what I was doing at 18 to 22 at Florida State, like just ruining my brain and mind with partying and doing just awful things like that. Experience you had, you're a blessed man, right? And probably didn't even take, maybe you did, but you probably weren't as grateful in the moment. But now looking back, like, it's like, man, that's an experience that not many people can say that they have. Before we move on from this, I want to touch on something that's kind of like, you can't not talk about this with your story. There was, I pulled some stats on this, which is just insane. You played on a defense that had, this was the, I think, 2011 team, averaged giving up 8.2 points per game, 183 yards per game, 72 rushing yards allowed, 115 passing yards, only 9 touchdowns given up all year. Opponents scored only 106 total points, held 9 opponents to single digits. Only one team scored more than 21 points, which is just like insane to be a part of that. Well, you're a dude that's 5'10", 180, playing a pivotal role on that defense. Like, there's got to be this massive boulder, not a chip, right? Like, massive boulder on your shoulder and like a huge heart inside in order to like put yourself up, and a mindset that you got to be a little crazy to go play SEC football with those kind of specimens, right? And that's what they are, like absolute specimen people. Quick story before I want to get your perspective on this. I ran into Barrett Jones recently, and I shared this story with you. But for the listeners, I am a nobody. I don't know Barrett Jones. Somehow my wife and her family knew Barrett Jones from Memphis, and we ran into him on a vacation down the street at the beach. And I was talking to him about you. I was like, yeah, I'm buddies with Will Lowery. And I was like, it's crazy, 5'10", 180 on that defense. He's like, yeah, but you can't measure the size of his heart. And that was like what he said. And that was like it. And I was like, oh shit, what else do you say to that? And so you can't measure the size of that dude's heart. Where did that come from? Like, is that something that's inherent about you? Like, did you always have that chip and that big heart and it was max level? Or was it like the necessity to survive and thrive, like type mentality?
I think those go one and the same because growing up now, I am like, I think I'm right on like the 50th percentile of height and weight. And I know that because it was a big deal for me growing up because I was not that for a long time. I was very undersized growing up. I was short and I was very light. And to compete at sports, it was difficult for me. And look, some of my best friends today, man, where I grew up, it was hard times. There would have been in today's day and age probably a lot of therapy for kids, but it was hard knocks where I came up in terms of like ragging on people. We just all to this day still give each other a very hard time where I grew up, and so I got a lot of short jokes, small jokes all the time. And man, I'm just a competitive person. I mean, no matter what I'm doing, and certainly in sports over the years and in business now, I mean, like you say, I think some of it is inherent. I don't know if it's, I'm very curious. My kids are real little. My girl is 5, my son is 4.5, my youngest is 1.5. So like, I'm just starting to kind of see them in some of those environments. I mean, very young age, and I'm very curious to see what their personalities are and what kind of drive and competitive fire they have. But for me, I've always had a competitive fire. When it comes to sports, I want to win, and I want to be good at whatever I'm doing. And so when it came to football, especially being undersized, and probably a little crazy too. I've never been scared to throw my head in. I like contact. I've always just kind of, my friends and family would probably agree with that. So it's a little bit of all that. But yeah, I mean, I just ended up playing football, and so I wanted to be really good at it. Again, going to Hoover, that's just all I knew was good athletes. I remember my first practice at Alabama. We get there again. I show up like after camp, and the handful of us that were in that kind of preferred walk-on situation, same thing. Kind of get there, fill out a bunch of paperwork, and even to the day of walking in the building, I'll never forget this either. When I'm walking in, a lot of the players that were already there were walking out for a workout that day. And as I'm walking in, one of the linebackers on the team looks at me. He goes, "What sports you play?" And as cheap as that can be, I'm like, "Here to play football, man." And then he's laughing, they're laughing, and it's kind of pretty funny. That player, I'm not going to name him by name, but he was a 5-star recruit, big deal. I ended up playing more than he did at Alabama, so there's some sweetness in that, and maybe that's an example of it. The chip, the boulder, whatever on my shoulder that you're talking about. I just never let size hold me back, or really anything limit me. Whatever I want to do, I'm gonna really, I mean, I just have a really strong drive in me and focus and determination to get it done and get the job done. Whatever it is in front of me, I want to be the best. I want to get it done. So, getting at Alabama, that first day of practice, I remember coming off the field and talking to my dad, and he's like, "How was it?" And I'm like, I'm not out of my league, like I can play with these guys. I get there, don't know what to expect, but again, being around competition at Hoover, I've always been around good players. So when I got there, I was like, I'm not blown away. Everybody's really good, but everybody's always been really good, and bigger and faster and stronger than me. No, nothing new. So to me, it was just about wanting to be good, wanting to compete, getting an opportunity, showing that I can play with anybody, and when I get a chance tackling somebody playing defense, it's a real, to me, it's a test when you're looking across the line of scrimmage and Mark Ingram's back there, Trent Richardson's back there, or Eddie Lacy's back there, and they get the ball and they're coming downhill at you. And I'm looking at you. My job's to get you on the ground. Man, I don't care how much bigger you are than me. You're going down. I'm
Yeah.
getting you down. I'm getting the tackle. You're not running past me. So I don't know. It's just the mentality I've always had. And again, that translates to everything for me. It's a drive to succeed, I think, at the end of the day, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's something I like exploring because it's interesting, and like I think that how you're raised has a lot to do with life, but then you study these people like that are orphans and not have any guidance, and they're the most successful people on the planet, right? And so I think that there's a balance of how you're born, and just how God made you, what made you who you are, and then also that those formative years, of like what you were watching your parents do, how your siblings were, like what you were exposed to at an early age. And then when you share these stories, I think of a lot of, and honestly, I think a little bit about my story. It's like once you get exposure to these really successful people, and like you get some intimate contact with them to where you're able to have a one-on-one conversation sitting and it's just you two, you realize that they're not much special or different than you, right? It's just they've structured their mindset to where they truly believe that they can achieve something great, right? And then they build their life around creating these discipline and habits, mindsets, building the team, right? They just live by these principles day in and day out. It's like excellence is a habit, right? It's literally a habit. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And so the exposure to these, you were exposed to it early, high school, probably all growing up with these kids. And then you get to Alabama. Yeah, you're 5'10", 180, but you can't take the dog out of you, right? And so that's just the mentality
Yeah,
there.
you just rattled off a handful of quotes that, resonate right along with the Saban stuff. There's a lot of tweaks to a lot of them, but same thing, it's excellence is not some nebulous thing. It's a choice and a decision daily to go out and be great and to get just a little bit better than you were the day before, and you stack the days, right? That was a lot of what he said. But I'm like you, man. I am very intrigued by successful people, and it is amazing the different backgrounds they can come from. Just like you said, it's like you can have the guy who grew up with the perfect highest level education from the day he was born and kind of catering to making this individual be knowledgeable and successful. And, maybe they're great, maybe they're not. And then there's the people who were, you know, born of a crackhead that barely made it off the streets, didn't have any learning, and but they somehow figure out and they have this drive to succeed and figure out an avenue of a way to make money and be successful or whatever. And it's so interesting to me the different backgrounds that people come from. And for me, one of the things that is a common denominator there is my dad always used to tell me growing up, you can do anything you set your mind to.
Hmm.
Like in America especially, but just humanity in general, you limit yourself. Really, a lot of people limit yourself mentally and stuff. And even myself, I guess, as an example, of that a little bit different story because I did tear my ACL in my senior year and kind of end the story, but you know I'd never thought about the NFL. My growing up in Birmingham, I mean, playing at Alabama was kind of the thing. It's like that's like as far as my kind of imagination took me. And then in retrospect, I'm like, a lot of the guys that backed me up at Alabama played the NFL. And I'm like, if I wouldn't have limited myself and my vision and my thoughts, like maybe I could have played in the NFL. And look, I could have pursued that dream. I didn't. When I tore my knee, it kind of made my decision easy. I was just kind of like, "Nah, I don't know if I'm going to chase a roster and stuff. That's just a long road, and you can get cut any day. I'm going to start putting hay in the barn towards whatever profession I'm gonna pursue for the rest of my life and start trying to get ahead in that. So I kind of turned the page on that. But again, back to the point of kind of mentally, I have thought about that. Like, well, if I had had dreams of playing in the NFL, I probably could have done it. I just didn't ever dream of it. It wasn't ever in my vision. Um, but that's always stuck with me. My dad saying that, and I already try and throw that in sometimes to my kids. It's like
Yeah,
you can do whatever you want to do in this world. You just have to set your mind to it, and you have to be willing to make the sacrifices and put the work in that, which is it takes to get there. That's another Saban quote. Everybody wants to win, but are you willing to do what it takes and what's necessary in order to win? Everybody wants to win, but are you willing to make those sacrifices? And I'll be honest, Coach Saban and even Nathan, my boss, who I know well and have had on this podcast, which, by the way, is why I put you off for a little bit. I feel a little bit not qualified or competent to be on here after Nathan's been on this podcast because obviously I think the world of him. He's such a successful guy and has accomplished so much. But that's something he talks about too, and I think it's really important for people to understand that it's like, Nathan is uberly successful, has everything in this world that I could want that from a possession or accomplishment standpoint professionally and money and things that he can do. And Coach Saban same way. But I'll be the first one to tell you, like I watched Nathan and what he sacrificed over the years to get to where he is today. And same thing with Coach Saban, the hours that he put in and everything that he did to get to where he is. And I'm not willing to sacrifice some of the stuff that Nathan did and that Coach Saban did. And so I'm honest with myself in that.
yeah,
And it's kind of trying to find that balance of what are you willing to give up in order to get what you want out of life, right?
sure. Yeah, no, I've been trying to do some different things, and I wrote a blog, which is super unlike me. But anyway, another story. But I wrote about the cost of leadership, right? And there is a true cost of leadership, right? And it's exactly what you talk about. It's are you willing to make the sacrifices? Nathan, what does he say? You want what you have, but are you willing to sacrifice what I've sacrificed or do
That's
what
right.
I've done, right? That's a quote that I give him credit for, which I'm sure he stole from somebody else. But it is a real thing, and it's a real thing to talk about. It's there's so many people out there, right? And comparison's a thief in general. Like
Hmm.
you try to compare yourself. I think that to others like it's impossible because of circumstances,
That's
relationship
right.
things that have happened in their life.
Very
But
dangerous.
it's a dangerous, a slippery slope, right? But there is a level of sacrifice that anyone has to take to achieve success. And I don't think that I am under the belief that I think that you can have it all. I think that you can have a great faith. I think that you can have a really strong relationship with your family and good health and massive, unlimited business success. I think we live in the greatest country on earth, in the greatest time to live in this country on earth with technology, all of we're in the information day and age. You can learn anything for free on, chat GPT or YouTube or Google or whatever. But are you willing to be disciplined enough, right? To wake up at 4:30, to time block and set aside 3 hours in the morning to work your ass off and be disciplined during those, 8, 9, 10 hours you work, and then go home and be present. And it's so much easier said than done. But like, I do believe that you can have it all. I think that you can have this level of success Nathan has and great relationships with your family if you're intentional, right? And if you have clarity. So I want to transition a little bit. I think we could talk about your football for like 3 podcasts, and I would love to. Just I'm a football guy, but I want to translate some of these lessons and transition into your business career. So you decide not to explore the NFL. What was your first move right from graduating Alabama?
So I'll get you before graduation. After we won the national championship in 2011, which was my last game on the team. Again, I tore my knee on senior day. Pretty bittersweet end to my career. So actually last bit of football, then we'll move on because it does tie in. And my junior year was the year, probably one of, if not the most talented teams we had at Alabama. But we lost 3 games that year. It was the year after we won our first championship under Coach Saban, and being able to, everybody wants to win a championship and has the drive to win a championship, but defending and when you're everybody's Super Bowl and you have that target on your back and everybody's coming with their A game at you every time is a totally different thing. And we kind of had to learn how to sustain success in my class. So my junior year, we lose a few games, namely to Auburn and Cam Newton, which was the hardest loss I've ever taken in my athletic career. We were beating the crap out of them and should have won that game. I won't go into a million side stories about it. I did sack Cam Newton for the record, though. But we lost. So, pretty tough moment. I can remember walking back to my house with my parents and my roommates who were on the team and crying. I was so upset that we lost that game. And I could not wait to get back and get that revenge my senior year. Could not wait. Then the game before that on senior day, I'm running down on a kickoff, get pushed in the back, blocked in the back, and step right when I'm planting to go after the guy with the ball, and tore everything in my knee. Boom. Last play I ever played, career over. So that's another thing, footballism that you hear, like you never know when your last play is. I heard that a million times growing up, and I am that guy. Would have never imagined that was the last play I was going to play.
Yeah.
And man, never played again. So anyway, had surgery, missed the Auburn game, super bittersweet. We did whoop them, which was awesome. And then the national championship, we beat LSU, get retribution on our one loss that year, win the championship in New Orleans. So awesome, right? But don't forget coming back from that game, and we're on the team bus back from the airport to the facility to get all our stuff. And it was like the veil had been lifted off my eyes, and it was like, well, that was it. Football's over. What's next? And my whole life to that point really had been about pursuing, the athletic stuff. And obviously I, did school at Alabama and got a finance degree and everything, but, was still largely focused on football. Had not focused on life after football or what I wanted to do yet. And so it was just this really interesting epiphany moment of like, all right, now the whole world's ahead of me. Like, which way am I going? No clue what I wanted to do. My mom, dad, and sister are all accountants by trade. I'd started in accounting before switching to finance. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Had a buddy whose dad was in real estate and was extremely successful, kind of got me interested in the real estate world. Um, I went into the sport management master's program for a semester before I realized that, the earning potential and ability to do the things that I wanted to do in life were probably more suited for real estate than that world, at least from what I had experienced in the short time in it. So I had been offered the DB position coach job at South Alabama to go into coaching, which is obviously where I had had the most kind of value already, or kind of hay in the barn type or whatever value add I could bring to anywhere, and kind of a more formulated path forward, right, in life. And candidly just decided not to go the coaching route. There's just, man, it's challenging, and especially because I had come up under Saban, like the way that he drove those assistant coaches, man, it's a
Talk about
grind.
sacrifice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sacrifice. It's a grind. I saw those guys up there late at night, and I'm like, man, I want to be home with my family at night, and it's tough coaching. You got to be willing to move. I moved a couple times growing up, and it was challenging. I was very young. I was born in Huntsville. We moved to Nashville when I was like 4, and then we moved to Birmingham when I was 8, I think. So I consider Birmingham home. So I did the majority of my growing up. I can still remember this day, first time I walked into that third grade classroom in Hoover, which is crazy because I have a terrible memory, but anyway, it's difficult to move, and I, thought that in coaching that it would be more difficult for my kids if I did that route. So, but look, not everybody's that way. It's all personal decisions, right? I have a ton of buddies in coaching; they do great with it. But just a route I did not want to pursue. So I was sitting on the porch one day right after that spring, after football had ended. One of my one of my neighbors was like, "What are you going to do next?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. I'm interested in real estate, and I need to figure out what I'm doing, but I've been working out in Tuscaloosa every summer. Like, I want to do something fun, be close to the water while I'm figuring it out this summer or whatever." And he was like, "Well, my brother works for a guy in real estate down on the Gulf Coast. If you want me to introduce you to him." And I was like, "Yeah, sounds great." And that's how I got introduced to Nathan.
Oh, no
Just
way.
like a happenstance conversation with my neighbor on the porch. And he puts me in touch with Gaines Zarzer, who ended up being my roommate down here for a little bit, one of my best friends to this day here in Fairhope.
And so what
And
year was
this is 2012.
this? Okay.
And at the time, Gaines was an agent at Bellator, our brokerage, which I'm no longer affiliated with. But so talked to Gaines. He's like, "Yeah, man, you're the exact kind of guy that I want to, talk to Nathan about, whatever." Puts me in touch with Nathan. And I'm like, "Hey, man, I heard you had an intern last summer," which I come to find out later was actually Drew Dolan, who's also one of my best friends, our CEO now. And he and I were buddies through a buddy in college. Had no idea we'd end up working together, but anyway, and Nathan's like, I was like, "Yeah, I heard you're an intern. I'd be interested if you have that position again this summer." And he was like, "Yeah, man, come on down." And I was like, "Okay, like when, where, what, like." And he was like, "Man, I'm down here working. Like, you can come hang out with me whenever you want." And I'm like, "All right." So came down here for 5 or 6 weeks that summer, met Nathan. I think he was 28 or 29 at the time, had like 3 businesses going, flying by the seat of his pants, just totally different. I grew up watching my dad put a suit and tie on and a briefcase and go into the office, kind of that old, like almost like you would envision in an
Yeah.
old movie. And Nathan, I'm down here and he's, working in workout clothes, just running all different directions, yelling at people, congratulate, having a good time, just has all this business going on. And he and I just clicked immediately. And so fast forward a little bit, go back, finish school, tried the grad program for a little bit of sports, got offered the coaching job, kind of had that fork in the road. Nathan offered me a job with him, and I decided to come work with Nathan and pursue the real estate world. And man, so glad that I did, and for a number of reasons. But yeah, I got down here in 2013, and when I started work with him, and it's been a ride ever since. But man, I started doing. I was basically his coffee boy. I'd go to every meeting with him, sit in on every call. I'd do whatever he told me to do. I'd clean places. I'd go help set up parties at his dad's house. I'd run errands for him. I did anything he asked me to do at the time to just kind of get in the door and start learning and spending time around him and figuring out where I could help him out.
Before we go too deep, how challenging was it to make the decision? Because football's been your whole life up until this point. Like I remember when I was 21, man, I was driven to be successful, but like it was tough, like to figure out what I wanted to do in life, and like I wanted to carve my own path and do all these things, but this is what I've known. Like I remember it being kind of an emotional time in my life. Now that I think about it, like when I was that age, right? And it's like, all right, you almost feel like a little pressure. I didn't have a girlfriend or any like one dependent on me, but I felt a little bit level of pressure like in making my next move. Did you have a similar experience?
Absolutely. I mean, it's your life, right?
Yeah.
It's basically this very interesting point in your life where basically up until you graduate college, or before that, for some people, up until you're 18, for some people, you kind of have like, this is what you do. You know, this is where you show up and this is what you're supposed to do, and this is your life, right? And then once you get through that period at 18, or if you go to college, once you get through college, um, and look, some people know what they want to do from a young age. I have a buddy who told me when we were like 7 years old that he wanted to be an Air Force fighter pilot, and he's still an Air Force fighter pilot to this
Yeah.
day. You know what I mean? So like he had this like track vision on what he was going to do, but that's not everybody, and I don't know what the percentage is, but I know it's a whole bunch of people that don't have that kind of just exact, precise vision. I was one of those guys. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so, yeah, I don't know if we got cut off before this, but got offered the job in coaching and just didn't want to go that route for a number of reasons. Just a very, very challenging road for some aspects, even though I'm part of, there's part of this that I wish I know I would love coaching young men and stuff. So, but I decided to go real estate for a number of reasons, but mainly just because of Nathan. I mean, I didn't know exactly what I was going to be doing long term with him and still don't. I mean, my job role changes probably every few years to some degree with Nathan, which is, I think, also partly what I like about working with Nathan. I just knew that getting into real estate with Nathan was by far and away my best opportunity at that point in life. And that, if I attached to his rocket ship, that, maybe we didn't hit the moon, but we were going to hit the stars, right? And as far as I can kind of go within that opportunity, was a great, at minimum, starting point for me. And now, 12 years later, have zero visions of leaving him. I love working with Nathan, our organization. He still has aspirations through the roof. But anyway, at this point in time, I just knew that that was my best opportunity. And I love real estate, like the little bit that I'd been exposed to it. It's just such an open world of
Right.
opportunity. It's the epitome of you get what you make out of it, right? You can do anything you want with real estate. You can work, there's agents that we worked with at our brokerage who were married and have kids and worked one day a week and sold a couple houses a year, and they liked that level of kind of interaction with people and helping people and, the social component of that. And then they make a little money. And then there's people that, there's the Donald Trumps of the world who are just it develop a zillion things. There's just so many different in between layers and routes you can go. And there's no cap on how much you can work or which way you go or how much money you can make and what areas you can get involved with. It's just a very open world of freedom, and you do get rewarded for hard work in it. So that had a lot to do with me choosing to do it. And again, just the best opportunity I had. So moved down here to the Gulf Coast, coming up right on 12 years ago here in a couple weeks, without knowing hardly a soul. I knew one of my two roommates who I also worked next door in the office with at the time, in Gaines, and came down here and got started, man.
And so, what was the first role? Were you a realtor?
So Nathan I got my real estate license right before I joined with him. He just told me when I interned with him and then leading up to the job, like, hey, you got to get your license. Um, Once again, kind of one of those avenues of real estate where you can make some money and,
Right.
a portion of whatever, just one of
Good
the
thing to have.
ways.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so got my license. But when I started work for him, I was basically his coffee boy. I mean, I did whatever he told me to do at all times of the day.
Yeah.
Basically tagged along with him, drove him to meetings, sat in on every meeting and call with him. And in retrospect, I'm sure that was kind of his vision. Like, hey, I'm just going to let this kid kind of get exposure to everything and figure out where I can help him. And so that's what I did. I touched everything at the time. 68 Ventures had just been formed. It was previously known as Battle Plan Capital when Nathan had a few partners in the holding company and that he talked about on his podcast with you. And we had Truland and Bellator. And then he had a zillion, individual deals and partners that he was invested in doing stuff. And at the time, he was still in that phase of buying up stuff from the banks and, starting to build out stuff through Truland and also selling lots to some of the other home builders around town and still buying a bigger master plan projects for the future, just all kind of different stuff. We were still in buy mode and figuring it out mode. And yeah, like I say, I mean, out the gate, I was doing all the dirty work and little stuff because I didn't know anything. And that's one of the reasons I owe so much to Nathan and appreciate him so much is that he hired me when I added zero value for him. I was an investment for him, like a lot of other things, from a time and a money standpoint. I still get a little choked up thinking about it because, I didn't know anything. I didn't add any value for him. I didn't know anything about real estate, down to the point I can remember when he was like, hey, read this. and it was CCRs, and I was like, "What is a CCR?" You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I knew nothing. So he
Yeah.
hired me when I knew nothing, could do nothing for him, and he invested a ton of time with me. And money to help me get started and help me or to help him with whatever I could. So like I say, anything he asked me to do, I was doing it.
I want to stop you right here because I think that this is such a powerful thing. Like here you are from the outside looking in, like you've had this successful football career, like, and even fast forward to now, but you get emotional thinking about like people taking a chance on you. And like that's a gift that not many people have because a lot of people in your shoes that would people would have opened the door for, they wouldn't have been grateful or they would have taken it for granted or not leaned into the opportunity. And then Nathan would have moved on. But he recognized something obviously that you care, right? Like you want to freaking make a difference. You want to be successful. You're a sponge. Like you're willing to do the things. And then I know just from this conversation that you expressed gratitude and you were thankful for new opportunities and you leaned in. And so he kept feeding you, right? And then ultimately, Nathan shares this like, in order to keep great people like yourself, and he's built out this cool team or great team of high level people, and they're typically athletes and driven people, right? But his vision had to keep getting bigger in order to keep guys like you around, right? And so it's a guy like you, I guarantee you, he listens to this and he's like, Will made me a better person, right? Because he showed up. He wanted more. He wanted more on his plate. Drew Dolan, all of these guys, like they were already, they're great in their own right, but it's forcing me to make my vision even bigger in order to make a place, for great talent. So I think that the it goes both ways, right? And I think it's awesome, honestly, that you get a little emotional thinking about that because it just it's powerful for you to show gratitude in that way, like, and it shows that you care, and it shows that like, man, like you can go through life and like not care, and that's fine, but man, there's so much more fulfillment when you like really lean into something and you care about, even if it's a job, like care about doing a great job and showing up, and ultimately your future family or your current family, your wife, like people get attracted to that, right? And then you make the world a better difference. It's a ripple effect. So I just wanted to stop you and
No,
recognize that.
you're 100% right. And I think that going back to the chip on the shoulder, I think that had a lot to do with it too. It's like, man, Nathan took a chance on me and gave me an opportunity when he didn't, I had zero merit to earn deserving that opportunity. So every day trying to prove him right for choosing me,
Yeah.
and that continues to this day and still want to outperform whatever he's asking me to do. But it's also kind of full circle because now we hire a lot of young guys. Over the years, working with Nathan, as my role's grown, I'm hiring younger guys, and still to this day, we just hired a 23-year-old kid. He starts on Monday,
Yeah.
and I mean, he's just the latest one, but there's been a number of guys and still some younger guys in our organization in between me and that age and stuff where I feel, I want to be the mentors to as much degree as I
Yeah.
can, like Nathan
Pay
was
it
for me.
forward.
I'll never be as good of a mentor as he was for me to anybody because Nathan's the ultimate mentor in my eyes, but want to try and have the same impact on those guys personally and professionally with their skill sets and just helping them navigate those stages of life that I've been through. It's kind of a pass it forward type thing in my approach, in my opinion.
Yeah. um you pay it forward, right? And it's awesome. And I can think of so many scenarios in my life where that's the case for me as well. I'm curious, how do you define success now, like where you're at now? Athletically, it's easier, I feel like, because like success is like, oh, I want to be the starter, or I want to win a national championship, or play a huge role, or just get on the field or whatever. In the game of life, right, it's a little bit different. I'm curious, how do you define success?
That's a great question. And I'll start by noting that when I started my professional career, I told myself my drive kind of then was I don't want to be known for my football career.
Sure.
That was kind of my thing. And so I still get a kick out of when people that I've known for a long time, then they all of a sudden come up to me and they're like, dude, you played football at Alabama? And I'm like, yeah, I did. And they're like, I had no idea, and I'm like, I don't know that I feel good that like people like to know me or whatever, and it's not just because
Yeah,
you played at Alabama and had
like
these
that.
accomplishments. But it's a tough question to answer. I'll say this: our my wife Marlo and I and our family, we go to Three Circle Church here in Fairhope, and one of the sermons at the beginning of the year has just struck home with me so strongly, and continue to read the bulletin. It sits on my desk at home. I read it fairly often, and it was the very beginning of the year, and Pastor Chris Bill said, he was like, oh, we're at that time of year where everybody says, man, the year just flew by. Where'd the time go? It's the new year. And he was like, well, guess what? I got news for you. This year is going to fly by too.
Mm,
What are you going to do with it? That's the question. And he talks about how life is a series of seasons, and you don't get to choose the season that you're in, but your job is to embrace and maximize the season that you're in. And he also said, which is one I've been struggling with a lot since I've had kids. I know you can relate. Everybody with kids can. That basically, once you have kids, time just it goes. Someone told me when I was in high school that like every day for the rest of your life is going to pass faster than the one before it,
yeah.
and that is one of the most true things that anyone has ever told me. I don't even remember who told me that, but it has stuck with me, and it's so true. But then once you have kids, it's just like warp speed. It just kind of it's exponential to where you look up. I feel like I remember like didn't have kids yesterday, and now my oldest is in kindergarten, and it just gets faster and faster. And so some days I catch myself getting a little upset or emotional or sad about like, oh, well, they're not just these little babies anymore. Where did the time go and stuff? But Pastor Chris's sermon was, you can't worry about the seasons that have passed because seasons are always closing. And if you worry about the one that's passed, you're going to miss the one you're in because it's closing too. So that's really hit home with me as I've been struggling to kind of come to grips with the concept of time as a parent and an adult and a professional. It feels like I'm sure you feel the same way. I just started working yesterday. I feel like I was in college yesterday, and I'm 35 now. I'm not the youngest guy in the meetings anymore.
Right.
It's that time's stacking the days pretty quickly. So to get back to your
Yeah.
question, it's difficult to answer, and I would say that I still don't have the perfect definition of success personally. But for me right now, I'm embracing the season I am in of raising a young family and trying to grow a team and an operation professionally. And I'm trying to embrace that season and maximize that season and figure out what are the best ways that I can get up every day and accomplish those missions of being the best father that I can be, being the best husband that I can be, and being the best worker that I can be, both for Nathan and then also for the guys on my team under me that are looking to me every day to, kind of lead the charge and stuff. So just being the best that I can be every day right now, it's almost a process type thing. I want to be successful. I want to raise great kids. I want to have money and be able to do the things that I want to do socially and with my wife and with my family. I want to take care of my family. I want to provide them every opportunity. But all that is going to come from being the best I can be every single day and living moment by moment, trying to be where my feet are and maximize and embrace the season and day.
Yeah, I mean, it's super inspirational, and as high performers, and the more high performers I talk to, and everyone's in different seasons, right? We're always striving for the next thing, and you get caught in this like loop of like, okay, once I get to, once I do this many deals, or once I have this many team members, or once I, accomplish this next thing, and so you're almost like always in the future, as high performers. And then you have people that are stuck in the past, right, and can't get out of their own way. But how do you remain present, And that's a challenge that I don't think ever goes away, right? And you talk about like, that season, you got to be present where your feet are at. Man, that's difficult. That is so damn difficult. But it's a good challenge to embrace. You mentioned your faith. It's something I like talking about a lot, in these podcast episodes. How has your faith shaped your life, and how have you intersected your faith within your business?
Well, it's obviously the most important thing in my life, and it's one of the most interesting things because it's constantly evolving. Your relationship with God is constantly evolving in a different season, maybe. But one of the quiet time lessons or things I read the other morning was talking about how life changes, the world changes, your circumstance change, but God is the same yesterday, today, and always will be. He is the one constant. He is unchanging, unmoving in your life. And that really hit home with me, especially again as we're getting older and you see the world changing so much. And I mean, technology's changed a great deal. The way that people work and interact, and society has changed. COVID was crazy. You just see these crazy things happen in the world and changes in the world and how humans interact and operate. And thinking about the fact that God is that one constant, that He's been the same forever and is not going to change, is really comforting and also intriguing in a sense. But man, it's been great. It's a challenge, I mean, I feel a challenge every day, especially in a business where you can, get kicked in the teeth and get frustrated, and certainly language, trying to, and I need to get better at that. But energy, everything. It's about how you show up as a leader every day, how you interact with people, and the thing, one of the positives about real estate that helps reinforce that is, or at least in my business, I've learned over the years is that, man, the world is big, but it's small. And you come back across people all the time, and it happens constantly where you'll come across an engineer, and if you don't treat that guy right, or if you're just a jerk to that guy, you're going to look up next year and he's going to be the county engineer, and you're going to need something from that guy, and you're going to wish that you weren't such a jerk to him, right? And I fortunately have not had many instances where I've had that and been like, oh man, I was mean to it's usually the opposite. I'm like, oh, thank goodness I was nice to this person, because now they're in a position of power, and
Yeah.
hopefully they think as favorably as me of as I think they
Right.
do, or that I do of them, or whatever, that we have the relationship I think we do. But that's a good kind of check on that, because it's really about just treating people right, and whatever your relationship is, whether they're a client or they're an engineer for you, or they're a junior engineer that's going to one day be the main engineer decision maker, or whether they're somebody that works for you that's going to be a client, or they're going to be your boss one day. I don't know. And I'm not saying I treat everybody perfect, but I try the best I can. And it's a daily challenge, just like you're saying, to be where your feet are and kind of show up and be present in the moment. Being who you want to be and representing the Christian faith the right way is a challenge every day. But it's a blessing at the same time, because the world is crazy and sometimes it's easy to get caught up. And certainly as you get older and your life stage changes and pressures change that you kind of referred to earlier, and being able to wake up and kind of have that quiet time and center yourself and think about, at the end of the day, this is a journey, that God has laid out for you, and His plan is already predetermined, and it's perfect. You're never always going to understand why you're experiencing a certain thing or having to go through a certain challenge. But my experience over the course of my life thus far has been, my lowest moments, they can be extremely tough. I mean, you fight through challenging times in life, and when you're in that window, you're going through it, you're like, why, or whatever. But in my experience is that at the end of the day, you look back at some point in time and say, well, thank you, Lord, for putting me through that, because if it weren't for that, then this wouldn't have happened, or whatever. And I'm also a butterfly effect guy, and ultimately
Yeah.
you wouldn't be where you are, right?
Right.
And so, everything I've been through, the good times, the bad times, the challenges, the victories, I wouldn't change a single thing. The good decisions and the bad decisions, I wouldn't change a single thing, because I'm afraid that I wouldn't be where I am today, and I don't want to be anywhere else than where I am right now.
Yeah, God has you right where He wants you. I love that. If there's one takeaway from this episode, I mean, it's what you just shared right there. God is always constant, and He's the only thing that's constant, right? And you might change in your faith journey, right? And hopefully you are, and getting closer. And thank God I'm not the way I was 10 years ago when I was 21, right? Like that was not a good place. But where I'm at now, right? God has me right where He wants me, right? And He is constant. And like you said, it's refreshing, right, to start your day with that reminder, right, and in the Word, and knowing that He's already got your path planned, right, and you could leave the world tomorrow, and that's okay if you're in a place where you're right with the Lord, right. So
Another thing I'll add too that you hit on earlier is gratitude. I've probably always been naturally, so maybe not, I don't know. I've always had gratitude, but Nathan is certainly one. He's made gratitude one of our core values as a company, and when he started kind of getting big on that years ago, it really hit home for me. And man, gratitude will change you. If you wake up every day, because it is easy, especially at the stage that we're in, some days can get monotonous, life can get monotonous, challenging days when you have multiple young babies in the house, and you and your wife are about to blow your heads off and trying to survive the moment. But at the end of the day, you wake up and you think about where you are and what all God has done for you and the life that you have, the family that you have, the friends that you have, the jobs you have, and you just think about that and be grateful for it, and it will change, your perspective. And some of those down days, and look, it's easier said than done. I still get frustrated in traffic and little stuff, but ultimately, I feel like I've gotten better as time goes on, and I'm still improving on being grateful for the day and just trying to be appreciative for what you do have. And every day you wake up with your health, you're winning. Because, I do know people that themselves, their kids, their family, their parents, whatever, they don't have 100% health and to some degree. And that alone, if you wake up and you can walk out of bed and, you don't, you have two arms, two legs and functioning brain and stuff, man, be grateful because you may not have that tomorrow or in the future. And so gratitude has become a big one for me. Certainly as you get older and think, things start to happen to people that you're peers with and that you know and that you knew growing up and stuff. So waking up and being grateful every day for what you do have has helped me a lot personally.
Me too. And it's one of those things that it's a muscle, right? And you have to practice it. And it's tough because you don't see a direct effect for a long time, right? But you don't even realize it until you've been doing it for so long, and then 5, 10 years down the road, you can look back. And I believe that what you focus on expands, right? And so when you start writing down these gratitude things, you start looking for more things to be grateful, right? Or you start celebrating wins. You start realizing that you can either focus on the negative or the positive. They're always there. It's strictly a function of perspective, right? And so coming from that perspective of gratitude, you attract more people, like good people, like because they want to be around those people that bring life to the conversations and are positive and grateful, and not the slug in the office that's miserable to be around. Like we all know them, right? And so anyway, I'm glad you brought that up because it is a very important thing that really ultimately changed life. And it's a small thing, but it's compounded over time with consistent and disciplined effort. Last thing I'd like to talk about is the show's called Legacy Builders, right? And everyone's got a different thought or definition of legacy. And so I'm curious to know what your personal definition of legacy is, and what's the legacy you hope to leave.
Legacy, when I think of legacy, a legacy that someone else leaves, I'm thinking about them, what I think about them, right? So your legacy to me is what people think about you and how they remember you. Um, and for me, I want, and also I'm thinking about what my kids will think of me or what my kids will see and think of me when they're gone. For me, I want to be my legacy to be that I worked hard. I did the right thing for the right reasons, that I cared for my family and the people around me in my inner circle. How the people in your inner circle talk about you says a lot to me. So I've been thinking about that recently, that I forget the story my mom sent to me. It was something about a guy. I'll have to find it. It was basically like you'll interact with 100,000 people in your life or something. It's basically like a football stadium, and like how would those people remember you on the day you pass away or something? And that's important to me. Like I want to have a positive interaction with everybody I come into contact with. It's partly that. It's almost like to me it's a middling balance between like I want to treat people right on a daily basis, and I want to have positive interactions with everybody I come into contact with or have a positive impact on them. I want them to be better for having come into my bumped me in life as than they were before, or not negatively, right? But it's also about how do the people that were closest to you feel about you, that know you the best? It's like your surface level and kind of your outside, and then it's your real inner person. How do you treat people? How did you treat the people under you, above you? Did you do the best you could do? How much effort did you put in? And it's just trying to be the best and maximize that, and make those people say the highest things about you. And would they get in front of you for a bullet? Would they take one for you? And kind of playing the other side of that role, for Nathan, who's mentored me my whole career. 100% I would. I mean, that guy treats people around him better than he should. He's loyal to a fault. I mean, he does things for other people at his own detriment and stuff. So like, he's a goal for me in that respect. I want to have the same impact for my team and my guys and stuff. So those things kind of help me shape the mark I'm trying to make in the world.
Yeah, it's a powerful definition. And when you have that kind of perspective, it's like I think about like we all have crap going in through our life. Everybody has stuff going on negatively, positively. But if you have that guiding light, like you're going to show up different regardless of what's going on, right? Because like you said, you could have this one interaction when you just got news that, whatever, you're struggling, you got in a fight with your wife, whatever, and then you show up and you're a jerk to them. They don't care what's going on in your life, right? They want to know how you made them feel. So it's that's a powerful perspective to have. I can talk just a little bit from what we've gotten to know each other through, golf and a couple other interactions. And I would definitely say you have left a positive impression on my life and the little bit that we've got to know each other. So appreciate you, grateful for this conversation. We covered a lot of ground, right, in a little bit of time, between your football journey, your faith, your family, business, relationships, gratitude, mindset, discipline, all the things. I appreciate you coming on. If people want to reach out to you, they want to hear a Saban story, or connect with a new development deal in the Gulf Coast or whatever, how can they reach out to you?
Email is good, wlowry29@gmail.com. That's LOWERY29.com. And I'm on Twitter too, JWLowry29 as well. It's the last social media that I hang on to. I don't think I would have a clue what's going on in the world without it. Easiest way is to reach me there. But yeah, man, really enjoyed it, Kyle. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yep. Appreciate that. We'll put a link to those in the show notes. And to our listeners, if this conversation resonated with you, share it with somebody, leave a review, subscribe. And remember, legacy isn't just about what you build. It's about the lives you impact along the way. Until next time, keep building with purpose.